I wasn't born into wealth, but I was born into resilience. Life demanded strength from me early on. When my husband passed away far too young, it was just me and Daniel. I worked 2 jobs, stretched every penny, and prayed through nights of exhaustion. Every sacrifice I made was for him. Daniel was my joy, my reason to keep pushing when the world tried to break me. I built everything around him. His education, his future, his happiness, those were my life's work. And when he graduated, I felt proud knowing he had become a man worthy of the world. I thought I'd finally get to rest a little, to enjoy the fruit of my labor. Then came Clara, my daughter-in-law. From the start, I could feel her dislike. Oh, she was polite in front of Daniel, smiling sweetly, calling me Mama. But there was an edge in her voice that only I could hear. The way she shifted uncomfortably when I offered advice. The tightness in her smile when I reminded Daniel of how I used to do things for him. She thought I didn't notice, but I did. I saw the way she rolled her eyes when my back was turned. I felt the coldness in her tone whenever she spoke to me directly. And as time passed, it became clearer. Clara didn't want me around. She wanted Daniel all to herself. To erase the years I had poured into his life. To silence my presence. To make me feel like a relic from the past. I had fought the world to raise my son. But I never expected the greatest fight of all would be against my own daughter-in-law. And I had no idea how far she would go to push me out. Living under the same roof with Clara was like walking on glass. Every word, every step, every look felt like it could be twisted into an offense. At first, she kept her hostility subtle. If I cooked, she would thank me in front of Daniel but scraped the food into the bin the moment his back was turned. If I offered to watch the baby, she would smile tightly and say, "It's fine. I'll manage," clutching the child like I was unworthy to hold my own grandchild. It stung, not because I needed gratitude, but because I wanted a chance to love my family without suspicion. I wasn't the enemy, yet Clara treated me like one. Daniel never noticed. He only saw what she wanted him to see. Around him, Clara played the role of the perfect daughter-in-law. Sweet words, soft gestures, carefully crafted respect. But the moment he left the room, her mask would drop. Her eyes hardened, her tone sharpened. And her message was clear: you don't belong here. The little things became weapons. She started forgetting to include me in family outings, whispering to Daniel that maybe I needed rest. She rearranged the house, moving things I had kept for years, stripping away pieces of my presence one by one. And Daniel, he just went along, smiling, thinking she was trying to make the house her own. He couldn't see what I saw. He couldn't feel the slow push, the deliberate effort to make me invisible in his life. The tension grew heavier each day. A part of me hoped she would soften with time, that we might find common ground. But the more I hoped, the colder she became. I began to realize something painful. This wasn't about misunderstandings. Clara wanted me gone. It happened on a quiet afternoon, the kind that doesn't warn you your life is about to change. Daniel had offered to drive me into town for errands. Clara, of course, insisted on coming along. She never missed a chance to keep me under her watchful eye. The drive was uneventful at first, though the air inside the car was heavy with unspoken tension. Daniel hummed along to the radio, oblivious. Clara kept her gaze fixed on the road ahead, her silence sharp enough to cut. I sat in the back seat, staring out the window, trying to swallow the unease growing in my chest. When we pulled into a gas station, I asked Daniel if I could step out to stretch my legs. He nodded, distracted, as Clara climbed out with him. I walked a few steps away, breathing in the dusty air, glad for the brief freedom. And then I heard the car doors slam. I turned just in time to see the taillights pulling away. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Maybe Daniel was circling to park elsewhere. But as the car rolled down the street, I saw Clara glance into the side mirror. Her lips curled in the faintest smile. My heart dropped. I waved, shouted, even tried to run a few steps after them. But the car didn't slow. Within moments, it disappeared into the traffic, leaving me standing alone in the sweltering sun with nothing but my handbag. The humiliation burned harder than the heat. Passers-by stared. A kind stranger offered me their phone. I dialed Daniel again and again, but there was no answer. Finally, Clara picked up. Her voice was low, deliberate. "Marking, we thought you'd find your own way home." And then she hung up. I stood there for what felt like hours, my dignity crumbling with every curious glance from strangers. Cars pulled in and out of the station. People filled their tanks, bought cold drinks, and moved on with their lives while I stood stranded, a mother abandoned by her own son and discarded by his wife. I can't explain the kind of shame that settles in your bones when you realize the people you gave your life for would leave you behind so easily. Every sacrifice I had made, every sleepless night, every coin I had stretched for Daniel's future, it all replayed in my mind. And now I was nothing more than an inconvenience. Finally, a kind woman offered to drive me home. I accepted, though my throat burned with humiliation the entire way. I didn't want anyone's pity. I wanted answers. I wanted justice. When I arrived, the house was quiet. Daniel avoided me for days afterward, as if ashamed to face me. Clara, however, wore her triumph openly. Her eyes glittered with satisfaction every time they met mine, as though she had finally pushed me out of place. It was then that I understood the truth. This wasn't a moment of thoughtlessness. It wasn't a slip. It was deliberate. Clara wanted me erased, humiliated beyond repair. So I would pack my things and leave their lives for good. But she underestimated me. Yes, I was hurt. Yes, I was humiliated. But humiliation is a fire. It burns, yes, but it also forges. And in the silence of those nights, as I sat alone in my room, I began to remember things Clara had forgotten, things Daniel had ignored. This house, this land, the papers my late husband had left behind. It didn't belong to them. It belonged to me. That night, long after Daniel and Clara had gone to bed, I sat in the small study at the back of the house. The room smelled of dust and old books, my late husband's sanctuary. Clara never came in here. To her, it was just clutter. To me, it was memory, and more importantly, truth. I pulled open the bottom drawer of his desk and lifted out a worn leather folder. Inside were the papers I had not looked at in years, property deeds, bank documents, signatures carefully witnessed and sealed. My husband had been a cautious man, always thinking ahead, and in those papers was his decision of the house and the surrounding land were left in my name. Not Daniel's, not anyone else's. I traced the ink with trembling fingers, a mix of grief and grim satisfaction rising in my chest. Clara had strutted around this home like a queen, but she had been living in my kingdom all along. I thought back to the gas station, her marking voice on the phone. Find your own way home. She believed she had the upper hand. She believed I was powerless, forgotten, defeated. But here, in my hands, was the silent witness to her arrogance, the proof that she had nothing. For the first time in weeks, I smiled. I would not scream. I would not argue. I would not beg Daniel to see what his wife truly was. Instead, I would do what Clara least expected. I would be silent, patient, careful, and when the moment was right, I would remind her, in a way she could never forget, whose name was written on the foundation of the life she claimed as hers. This wasn't just survival anymore. It was war. Days passed, and I carried on as though nothing had changed. Clara mistook my silence for defeat. She walked through the halls with her head high, giving orders as if she already owned the place. Daniel, poor boy, was blind to it all, caught in the web of her charm. One evening, I was setting tea in the kitchen when I heard Clara's voice drift from the living room. She was on the phone, her tone sharp, triumphant. "Oh, don't worry," she laughed softly. "This house will be mine soon. The old woman can't last forever. Once she's out of the way, Daniel and I will have everything." Her words pierced me like a blade. My hands tightened on the teacup until it nearly shattered. There it was, the truth laid bare. She didn't just dislike me. She wanted me erased, out of the picture, gone. I pressed myself against the wall, listening. She continued, voice thick with venom. "It's already happening. She knows she's not wanted here. Soon, she'll leave, and we'll finally be free." Free, that's what she called it. Freedom from me. The woman who raised Daniel. The woman who held this family together when everything fell apart. I closed my eyes, and in that moment, something inside me hardened. No more waiting. No more hoping Daniel would wake up. No more swallowing insults to keep the peace. Clara thought the gas station had broken me. She thought my silence meant surrender. But what she didn't know was that her arrogance had only lit the final spark. She wanted me gone. No, it was she who would be gone. And when I was finished, she wouldn't just lose me. She would lose everything. I didn't confront Clara. No, that would have been too easy for her. She thrived on drama, on raising her voice until Daniel rushed to her side. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction. Instead, I turned to the one ally she had forgotten I had, the law. The very next morning, I carried the old folder of deeds and documents to my lawyer's office. He had known my late husband, and when I laid the papers before him, his brows rose. "Martha," he said slowly, "this house is entirely in your name. You never transferred ownership. Legally, you're the sole owner." I nodded. "Good," I whispered. "Then let's proceed." He looked at me, cautious. "Proceed with what?" I leaned back in my chair, the faintest smile tugging at my lips. "I want it sold. Every inch of it, quietly, efficiently, and as soon as possible." The paperwork began that very week. Meanwhile, at home, I moved silently. Clara strutted through the halls as if she were mistress of the house, rearranging furniture, calling it our home. She had no idea that signatures were being inked, contracts drawn, buyers lined up. At night, I lay awake and imagined the look on her face the day she realized everything she thought was hers had slipped through her fingers. I was patient. Every insult she threw at me became fuel. Every cold glance was another log on the fire of my determination. She had left me stranded at a gas station, mocked me with her smug smile. But soon, it would be her standing outside, bags in hand, with nowhere to go. The trap was set, and all I had to do was wait for it to spring. The day the sign went up was brighter than I expected. The sky was clear, the sun sharp, almost marking. I watched from the porch as the real estate agent hammered the post into the lawn. For sale, the bold red letters glared against the manicured grass like a declaration of war. Clara's scream came seconds later. She bolted out the front door, her hair wild, her face twisted with disbelief. "What is this?" she shrieked, jabbing a finger at the sign. "Tell me this is a joke." I stayed seated in my chair, calm as still water. "No joke. The house is mine. Always has been." Her face went pale, then red, then pale again. She looked around as if the walls might whisper reassurance. "Daniel," she bellowed, running back inside. When he came out, she was shaking, her voice pitched high. "She's lying, Daniel. Tell her she can't do this." I handed him the folder of documents. His hands trembled as he flipped through the pages, the truth hitting him with every line of ink. He looked at me, then at her, and said nothing. His silence was louder than any words. Clara lunged toward me, her voice breaking into desperation. "You can't take this from us. This is our home. You just. I cut her off with a raised hand. "Just the owner. You see, Clara, while you spent your days marking me, humiliating me, forgetting who I am, I still had the final word written on paper. And now, the house you thought was yours is slipping out from under you." Her knees buckled, and for the first time, her pride crumbled. I had been left at a gas station, but she had just been left without a future. The sale went through faster than even I expected. Within weeks, papers were signed, accounts were settled, and the house no longer belonged to Danielle and Clara. They hadn't seen it coming, not the speed, not the finality. On moving day, I stood by the doorway as movers carried out furniture piece by piece. Clara hovered helplessly, her eyes red and swollen, shouting at anyone who would listen. "You can't do this. This is our life, our future." I said nothing. Silence was sharper than any insult. Daniel tried pleading. "Mom, please. We have nowhere else to go." His voice cracked. But I saw it, the shame in his eyes. Deep down, he knew I was right. He had let Clara drive a wedge between us, had allowed her cruelty to flourish unchecked, and now he was paying the price. I pressed the keys into the agent's hand and turned to face them one last time. "You left me at a gas station as if I was nothing," I said, my voice steady, almost gentle. "But you forgot who built this family, who sacrificed everything for it. You thought I was powerless. But this house, this land, this life, it was never yours to claim." Clara collapsed into a chair, defeated. Her pride shattered into pieces she couldn't pick up. Daniel stood behind her, shoulders slumped, silent. I walked out the front door without looking back. The sun felt warm on my skin, the air fresh and light. For the first time in years, I breathed freely. At my husband's grave later that evening, I laid a bouquet of fresh flowers and whispered, "They tried to erase me. Instead, I erased them. They left me stranded once, but I left them with nothing. And my revenge was complete." Like and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.